Yeah, I feel like if Kirky hits a triple, you should win the game automatically. You know, that should be a new rule for MLB to listen to. But, fitting place here at the Trop. Didn't have Spence scoring first on a Kirky triple on my bingo card. But, nice that we got the ball for him. And, the stars were aligned.
Well, yeah, the stars were aligned, although the Jays were swept in 3 games by Tampa Bay Rays. And I did have that in my bingo card.
You did?
It's Blair and Barker for Monday.
Hey, everybody.
Hi there, everybody. It's the final week of the 2024 championship season.
Be nice,
man. Well, no, there used to be a thing. Everybody comes out and says, it's the beginning of the championship season is another word for regular. Anyhow, I don't want to.
Championship season's over by June 10th.
It was over the day that Jimmy Garcia went.
That was the 17th.
That was the 17th. Anyhow, the Jays are 73 and 83.
Something like that.
Something like that.
And they're little for a lot.
They're starting a 3-game series against the Boston Red Sox tonight at the Rogers Center, 7:07 first pitch. We will, of course, have it right here on Sportsnet 590, the Fan of Sportsnet. And Blair and Barker will be along following the game to do Blue Jays talk. We've got a lot ahead in the show today. Roch Kubatko will join us. He's the Orioles reporter for Masson. The Orioles are 3-7 in their last 10 games. They are limping, and I do mean limping into the postseason. They've got a road series against the Yankees starting tomorrow. David Samson will join us. We've got a lot to talk to David about. I want to talk about the Oakland Athletics situation. We should be making a bigger deal about the team leaving Oakland.
We should?
Yeah, because you know what? I mean, those A's World Series teams, going back to the 70s with Reggie and Joe Rudy and Vida Blue and all those pitchers they had and into the 80s. I mean, they were, screw Moneyball.
Yeah, I think baseball fans as a whole, instead of A's fans, can only deal with the A's if they're winning. You're watching them in that stadium. You're watching them as a bad team. You basically don't want to watch them anymore. So, I mean, it's all about who you're talking about. I think that's why they ain't making a big enough deal out of it.
They've had some great players.
They were great,
and it's a team that really represented.
And their unis were sweet.
Unis were always
awesome.
Sweet. Should have made more use of the elephant, though. The elephant.
I think so too. I'm with you.
More use.
Just seemed like it was fitting.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
No, it did.
But it did.
It always made me laugh. Athletics and it's an elephant. Anyhow, we'll talk to David Samson about that. We'll also ask him if he has ever sent a player down to the minors for staying out at the casino. Such happened to C.J. Abrams, the Washington Nationals, and we'll talk to David as well, very simply about what he would do with this particular team, the Blue Jays. Shi Davidi joins us as well at 5:30, and we've got tickets to see the Jays and Marlins.
What a show.
We'll give that away.
What a show.
Well, I mean, if only the team lived up to the show.
Man, I thought they were fun. It doesn't seem like you're having fun anymore watching them.
No.
Are you? Why?
Well,
are you? Yes or no?
Yeah.
I ain't.
There's more going on, I think.
I'm not having fun watching them anymore. Like I had fun, when you were trying to figure.
You've been in bad
when you
mood
were
all
trying
day.
to figure out what they were and what kind of players they are, and it's nice to see younger guys have a better approach instead of a dude with a walker and a guy trying to play center with hurt feet. Like, yeah, that's way more fun doing this. The first month they were here, and then for me that wears off because they lose a lot.
All right.
Like that's the part of it, right?
Yes. Yes.
What have you done for me lately? And lately they've been losing a lot. And then you watch them over this series where basically it's the Rays going, right here's the good old number one. And for whatever reason, other than a couple of guys, and I've said this to a bunch of people, Ernie Clement can't be your second best fastball hitter. He cannot. I'm sorry. You just cannot do that.
No
and
disrespect to Ernie, but that's
what's happening now is we're watching. And I had our producer pull up some stats about the fastball in the 3 games. They hit 192 off the 4-seamer. They hit 105 off the 2-seamer. Okay? They had 33 swings at the first pitch fastballs. They struck out swinging 12 times on the 4-seam fastball. That's in 3 games now, Jeff. Chase percentage was somewhere around the 26% mark. Whiff percentage on the 4-seamer was 23.5%. The 2-seamer, like I said, they hit 105. Like, just Again, I just don't understand. It's sort of confusing to me that in 2024, a younger lineup, the Jays are younger.
That's where I was going.
Just have the issues that they consistently have against the fastball. I don't understand. It's 2024. If you don't think a fastball's coming by now,
I mean, you would think that you would be fooled by off-speed stuff. Major League
filthy dude throws hard. I'm cheating a little because of how hard he throws. And, I have holes like I don't like the in, I don't like it up, I don't like it away, I don't like it down. I have a weakness. So I want to cheat. I want to protect that. And sometimes by protecting that, I might chase something that looks similar to what my weakness is. And I'll be out in front and I'll take a fanny out and around, weird swing and punch out. But 3 days of basically, Jeff, here it is. That's what I said coming away from that thing. Rays are winning the East next year, and I am picking them.
You're overreacting.
No, I'm not. I am picking them. They'll win 85 games because of their pitching.
But I will say this: I think if you listen to the broadcast or the telecast, if you listen to Dan and Buck, and one thing about Buck, when Buck goes into another city, Buck talks to a crap ton of people with that organization. So does Dan. They've just always, first of all, they're pros. That's what pros do.
Yeah.
But when Buck and Dan talk about another team, they're doing that because they've talked to an executive and a manager. And I've listened to them enough to know when they're sold on a team.
Yep.
And they're all in on the Rays.
Yep.
And it's not hard to see. It's not hard to see why. Like I told you, I had no idea who the hell Hunter Bigby was.
You do now.
He's going to be a pain in the ass next year. No, he is going to be. He's going to be he's going to be that guy that every time he comes in the game against the Blue Jays.
Are they the best evaluating of talent team in baseball?
You know what? Buck made a good point about this, and I've heard other people say this. Actually, I want to ask Samson this because the Marlins for the longest time were also like this. The Marlins did a really good job, and the Rays are doing a good job now of identifying talent in another organization, of identifying somebody at AA that
lower
can help
levels.
them.
Yeah.
Anybody can look at AAA and go, oh, that guy's good, that
been
guy's
around, knows how to do that.
They seem to, that's why, when they made the trade for Drew Rasmussen a couple of years ago, I came on the air and said, I don't care who they got. Drew Rasmussen's the guy that's going to be shoving it,
and he did for a while until he got hurt.
Yeah. So anyhow, the Rays are, I'll ask you this. Who would you rather be going into next year, Rays or Jays?
Oh, it's not a thought.
They'll be doing it about half.
Who do you have more
too.
confidence in?
Yeah.
The Rays or the Jays?
Yeah. No, no doubt about that. All right, so we've seen this lineup now. And we've seen all these young guys. I wouldn't say you're down on them, but I mean you made a pretty
down strong.
No, but you made a pretty definitive statement at the start of the show. I want to ask you this. You've seen all these guys. Now, okay, we haven't seen enough Jonathan Clase yet. Pardon me.
You can tell he's a work in progress, but he's fast. Speed never slumps.
Who of the guys you've seen are you sitting there saying, I'm not saying you're looking at him and going, the Jays will probably have him in the opening day lineup next year. Different question. I'm asking you when you look at a guy, who do you think should be in the lineup next
Horowitz playing second base leading off. I've said that and I'll continue to say it. I think it's a no-brainer. It's right in front of you. It ain't going to happen. Obviously, they want no part of that, and there's a reason why he's playing first, and Vladdy's going to play some third. Like there's a reason why that's happening, and you're seeing it play out right in front of you. But for me, just the at-bats he gives you, the more he faces lefties, he'll have a better chance of competing and giving himself a chance to use the entire field. He can hit velocity. He makes adjustments quicker than the other guys do. He's more mechanically sound because he's a little older. He's had to earn his way to the big leagues. When you do that, you tend to simplify it quicker. I went through that. If you don't, you won't go to the big leagues. It's real simple. How do I impress? How do I do this? How do I repeat my mechanics? How do I sort of repeat just the mental part of walking to the plate? And I got to simplify this thing as much as possible and give myself to have a chance to have a quality at bat. I may not always have success, but it looks like I've been there and done it before. He's the one guy. And then there's everybody else. And I've heard that Will Wagner, we've had that argument, he's probably going to be a part of it, but
it's not really an
Just
argument.
seems like that you just can't take them all. Like look, this is an offensive offseason for me. This ain't about defense. This ain't about going out looking for a second baseman, looking for a third baseman, looking for a left fielder. Now you got to look for a center fielder. None of that. It's about getting the best bats you can possibly get in here. When they're here, we all get together and find out where they're going to play, where they're not going to hurt your team, not where they're going to change the game defensively, where they're not going to hurt your team. It's real simple for me. I don't think you have to overthink it. So a long-winded answer to your question, there's one guy. Ernie's going to be the fifth guy in the infield because you can move him around. He plays short. Because of what the shortstop's been through all season, there's some unknowns there.
I also don't really consider Ernie to be one of the guys they called up because he's been here for
there
a
you
fair
go.
amount.
And he's shown you that he loves hitting the hater.
Leaguer.
He likes
He's
to
a
hit the
major
hater.
leaguer. He's a major league. He is a guy that I think could be on a good major league team, on a good roster. Maybe not playing every day.
He
but on a
can
good
pitch
roster.
it against the ninth inning guy. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And look like he's been there and done it before. And
he's not going to make a mistake.
he can hit a fastball. I said those stats for a reason.
Yeah.
Is because of the sort of the Rays. And Joe Siddle made this point after the game yesterday when I was listening and said, and you've said this a bazillion times, the other team will tell you all you need to know about the opposing lineup. And the Rays basically said, here it is. We don't think you can hit it. Why is that? Like, is it mechanical? Is it, you're just not talented enough? Is it the information that you're being given, you're overthinking it? Like, I would think that's where you'd start. Like, you're young. You should have trouble on the breaking ball. All young guys have trouble on the breaking ball, not the fastball.
It's remarkable how often you will see one of the young Jays hitters look absolutely clueless against a fastball.
Right down the middle.
And in a fastball count.
Buck even said that a couple of times, right down the middle. Like, it's not like they're locating them. Like, they weren't on the black, nasty pitches. Now, they made good pitches, but a lot of the times they weren't good pitches, and they either took them or they took an awkward swing. Looked like mechanically they were mentally in a different state than they should be against a certain pitch and against a certain pitcher. It's like if you do it to me a couple of times, shame on me. It ain't got nothing to do with you, and that part of it I just don't understand. And
Kevin,
how does that get better?
Yeah, the other thing, too, is there's no pressure right now.
Absolutely. Boy, welcome to my side.
No, but I'm talking about for
well, there is for these guys. Well, there is because they're trying to make a team, and, they want to impress. And, it is, again, I've said this. How do you take the Jays lineup serious until they show you they can slug against the fastball?
I was going to say, if I wanted to make this lineup, I'd just go up and try to and try to hit the fastball. And I
can't have a platoon player next year being my second best fastball hitter. I can't. And he is.
And
because he looks for it.
Buck also made the point during, I believe it was during Saturday's game as well. Further to your point, we're talking about, and it made me think of our friend Josh Donaldson, right? About don't congratulate me for fouling off 8 pitches because the second pitch I fouled off is one I should have put in the seats. And Buck made that point as well. They were fouling off. Yeah, you're fighting, you're battling. I get all that. But they were fouling off pitches that should have been hit.
Yeah, real Jays fans that were watching this and listening to this show, go back and think about how many fastballs they swung at, and you were walking away from that going, man, it just missed that. Do you guys remember one? Other than Vladdy at bat and an Ernie Clement at bat.
Yep. And
then the other ones were, like the in-between, they were late. I mean, you saw some 2-0 heaters middle, late.
Yeah.
It's like you're either way overthinking it or you have trouble with it or, mechanically you're in between a bunch of things. So
let's talk about Vladdy. Vladdy's weekend. Vladdy now has 194 hits. He could become the sixth Blue Jays player with 200 hits. John Olerud got 293. Shannon Stewart, who nobody remembers, seemingly, 202 hits in 2001. Paul Molitor, 211 hits in 1993. Tony Fernandez, who for my money is really underrated by Jays fans. I have no idea why. 213 hits in 1986. And speaking of guys that Jays fans, for some reason, tend to underrate, Vernon Wells at 215 hits. 2000.
Yeah, I think it's how it ended.
Yeah. Vladdy has 194 hits. He's hitting .327 after going 3 for 5 yesterday, 7 points behind Bobby Witt Jr. In the American League batting.
200 hits a big deal for him? For you?
For me, yes.
It is. Why?
Well, I will say this, because when I looked at Vladdy's game all along, Vladdy's offensive game, I kept thinking 30 and 100 easy, 30 and 100 easy, 30 and 100 easy. I'm not certain I thought 30 and 100 320. I'm not certain I saw that from Vladdy. I expected a ton of power and maybe 285, 290, 295. I mean, the fact that he is even close to a batting title, basically being the only guy in the team anybody thinks about.
Yeah.
I
wonder if that would change. I wonder if that would change the front office's mind about, we're headed in one direction. We don't want to do as much. Now this guy is doing this, doing all of these things, using the entire field. That's what it's about, right? He's hitting the breaking ball better. He's using the entire field. That's why he's got almost 200 hits.
You would thinking back to Vladdy's good year, he was in the batting title, so it was a batting race. But thinking back to when Vladdy started out, did you think he could be a guy capable of winning a batting title? Not home runs, but a batting title.
Yeah,
you ever think Vladdy could hit 330?
Yeah. If I was going to say he's going to be a 100 guy on average his entire career, yeah, I think he can win a batting title. Okay. But I also thought they needed to surround him with a little bit more, even then and obviously now. Like, I just wonder about that. I wonder if
he could finish. Kevin, he could finish with a 330 average.
Absolutely, 330. There's like 7 300 hitters in the big leagues.
Yes,
7.
Yes.
It's nuts.
And that more than...
He's got 21 3-hit games, too, after yesterday.
Stat. No, I mean, his OPS plus as well is, is the fourth best. Right now, it's what? What did I look at? It's the fourth best in Jays history. John Olerud, 186 and 93. Jose Bautista, 182 in 2011. Delgado, 181 in 2000. Guerrero's already got the fifth best and the fourth best right now, and he could continue to build on that. It's just been such a good offensive year that I really...
It's been great.
I mean...
other than the first 2 months.
Yeah. It'd be great to be watching this in the middle of a playoff race.
Yeah.
Because here's where I'm going with this. Vladdy's postseasons have not been great, and I would love to see this Vladdy in a freaking postseason.
Yeah.
I would love to see this Vladdy in a postseason. Yeah. Which to me makes this year even
mechanics, timing, and mentally all meet in the middle, and it's all working the way it's supposed to be working.
Third base.
Huh?
But I'm saying Vladdy playing third base.
In a playoff game? Don't get crazy. I mean, he wants to. I'm sure he wants to for a reason.
I think he knows why he wants to play third base. Exactly.
Why wouldn't you? You wouldn't?
I would too. Hell yeah.
It seems like one organization won't do it. I'll try and play another position to force other organizations to do it.
If my agent sits down and says to me, you know what?
You can make $125 more million switching positions.
Oh, and by the way, play in a position you like. It's not like it's not like he's going to second base, being forced to go to second base. He's going to third base and he likes playing third.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Can the Blue Jays, I'm not going to say win a World Series, but make a deep playoff run with Vladdy playing third base every day?
Well, I mean, depends who's at first base.
That's not what I ask you.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
To borrow your argument, I mean, the way they've positioned guys now with analytics and everything, yeah, absolutely you can.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I believe that, but
can they go in a deep run with Spencer Horwitz at first base and Vladdy?
I don't care. It's like putting him at second. I don't care what position he plays. Catch the ball right at you 8 times out of 10, and I'm happy if you're getting on base 330% of the time.
What I'm saying.
That's all I want.
What I'm saying is they can go in a deep playoff run with Vladdy at third if they have a dude at first.
Yeah, I think I mean, look, perfect scenario, but the way it's playing out now and the way you see Horowitz playing where he's playing consistently and where you see Vladdy when he does play a position where he's playing like it's...
I mean, Vladdy's still getting... Here's the only thing I'll say about that is Vladdy's still getting a lot of reps at first. Like, we're making it sound like he plays third base every day, and he doesn't.
Well, he plays over there enough to make you wonder why Horowitz is playing first so much.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe.
You know, you see it play out. You're going, man. If I like that, and I like Horowitz's at bats, and Vladdy's raising his hand, going, "I'll play third for you guys," and you don't even have to pay me.
And we do know that this we do know that this coaching staff thinks they can turn Spencer Horwitz into a power hitter. I mean, they've been given those instructions, and you know that they think there's enough there that they can turn him into maybe not a power hitter, but they see 20, 25 homers out of him.
What? Who told you that?
You did.
I have never told you that.
You said that
I've
they
said
were
they
working
tried to
with
force him into slugging to the pull side.
Well,
no 25 ever come out of my mouth. I said 15 homers and 30 doubles playing seconds. What I said.
Okay.
If you would pay attention.
All right.
That's where I said not hitting cleanup.
You can hit 15.
He's either in first or second for me or sixth on.
But if they honestly think that he's capable of 15 home runs, then they think he's capable of 20 home runs.
I mean, that's a good week and a half, Jeff.
They you know how teams are. Nobody sits there and thinks, well, we put this guy here, he can give us 15 home runs. No, they're thinking 20 home runs. They always think in terms of.
Yeah, I think it's a process. I think it'll all be telling if one way or the other what happens with Vladdy when it comes to how much money they want to try and give up to get him and sort of tell the world that they're invested and they want to be a part of this for long term. And free agents come. He's going to be here. Helps.
By the way, the Tigers, they just announced that they're calling up Jackson Jobe, right-hander. He's the number 2 prospect in the organization, number 6 overall. He's the highest-ranked pitching prospect in baseball.
Yeah, he'll follow one of those openers.
2.36 ERA over 91 2/3 innings in Toledo. So there you go.
Why waste the bullets down there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Bringing him up.
Yep.
Going to join the Tigers for the playoffs.
Minor league system's over too, so that helps. It's all about how do you get them to the finish line. They're playing. They're fun. They have that. It's only a matter of time. You know, you can see the look when you watch a team from afar. It's just like, okay, they fall behind, a couple of runs early in the game, and you just got that feeling like it's only a matter of time before they come back. And now they're doing that. There's no pressure on them.
Roch Kubatko joins us. Just want to quickly whip through the standings for folks. The Yankees after the weekend. The Yankees are in first place in the East. They're 92-64. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Baltimore is second. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They're 4 up in the wild card. Thank God they won all those games early.
Yeah.
And then really don't care about everybody else in the East.
Who's in last?
Tampa Bay and Boston are still in it. Your Blue Jays are in last place.
How many by?
By a fair amount.
We'll say it.
They're 5 back of the Rays in 4th, and the Red Sox. They're 9 back in the wild card. The Central is a dogfight. The Guardians, well, they've got the division. They're 7.5 games ahead of Detroit. Detroit is 82-74.
I'm not sure it's a dogfight anymore.
Kansas City. Kansas City. Not Kansas City's 2-8. They're 7. They're
Twins
2-8
lost 13 out of their last 19. Like, I'm not sure it's a dogfight anymore.
The Twins are 8.5. Well, the division isn't, but the wild card is. The Twins are a game back in the wild card. Houston, they got a 5-game lead over Seattle. Mm-hmm. Seattle's still in the wild card.
Kansas City just got to play 500 in the next 6 games. They do that, they're in.
Yeah.
It's easy.
If you look at the AL wild card right now, God, I hate this website. Not ours, MLB.com. It's unnecessarily complicated half the time. If you look at the wild card races in the AL East, and it's not showing itself. That's tremendous. Anyhow, the Tigers and Royals are there. The Twins are a game back, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
Baltimore's 4 up in the wild card, so they'll be in the wild card. Seattle's 2 back of the wild card. If you go to the National League, the Phillies, they've got a 5-game lead on the Mets. The Mets are 7-3 and winning games of throwing balls bouncing off the bag.
It's crazy, right?
Crazy.
I mean, and ball going straight up when it hits the bag, like it's meant to be sometimes.
Yeah, they start a series in Atlanta tomorrow.
Do you earn meant to be? Like I think the Mets have earned that ball hitting the bag and going straight up like that.
I do think you make your own. You make your own luck.
This time of year, I think
Brewers are well ahead in the Central. The West is a lot more interesting than we thought it would be. The Dodgers are 3 up on San Diego. They have a series starting tomorrow. Arizona's in there as well. So right now, Arizona, San Diego, and the Mets are the wild card teams. Atlanta's 2 back in the wild card race, and I mean, basically, Atlanta's year is this series.
So basically, it's the 4 teams fighting for 2 spots in the American League wild card, and it's the teams in the number 1 seed in the American League and the National League. That's what it's about, right? I think that's how much it means to you. What would you do to get it? Is it a big deal for the Yankees to get it over the Guardians? Like, is that a big deal?
I mean, the only thing I would say is I've always thought that
I think the Phillies have to have it to win the World Series. That's just me. Home field advantage throughout.
I always look at it differently. To me, the important thing about home field advantage, it's more important not to play in the first round of the wild card to me, because I really want to be able to line my pitching up. I want to be able to take a bit of a deep breath, get my pitching lined up, and also have an idea of who I'm going to be facing next. That's what I like about not having to play in the wild card. The flip side is everybody will tell you, a lot of teams that go into the wild card end up going on to have success because it's just season just keeps going.
That's you're getting the buy, so you basically can line that up the way you want to line it up.
And I think that's important. I think that's more important for the Yankees.
It's just how big a deal is home field advantage throughout. That's the whole thing, right? I think do you believe in the Guardians? Even if the Guardians won, the best record in the American League, the Yankees care. Like the Guardians get thumped in the first round. I mean, you could say, yeah.
I think it's more. I think it's more whose pitching does it help, and I think the Yankees, given the way their bullpen is right now, given what they may be doing, I think it's more important for the Yankees not to have to play that first round. Wherever they play the second round is fine. They need to stay away, and they've done that. They need to stay away from the wild card. I look like a team like Baltimore. I think the wild card really screws them up because their starting pitching is, they've got a lot going on, and we'll talk to Roch Kubatko in a few minutes about this. To me, the Orioles look like a team that needs a couple of days off.
Who do you think quick answer, right before we go to break here, who do you think the Astros are more fearful of playing first round, Kansas City or the Tigers? Because that's who they'd be getting.
Tigers.
You think so?
Yeah, that pitching.
Scooble, I mean, if they could, to your point, if they could line Scooble up for game 1 against the Astros, that's a handful. Well, I mean, that's because that's a big deal in those 3-game series, right? Winning game 1.
Roch Kubatko covers the Orioles for Masson. He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker for a Monday on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. A reminder that effective a week from tomorrow, we will be going 3 to 4 on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus. So we'll have you covered all through the postseason. I thought you were going to say something. You gave me that look.
Doing a good job. I'll let you say.
The Jays, of course, will not be in the postseason. Surprise, surprise.
Thank you.
The Baltimore Orioles will be. But the question is, in what shape will the Orioles be going into the postseason? The Orioles currently hold the AL wild card, the top wild card spot, by 4 games. They have today off. They start a series against the New York Yankees tomorrow in the Bronx. Roch Kubatko covers the Orioles for Masson, and he joins us on Blair and Barker. Hello, Roch. How are you?
All right. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing well. We're doing well. I guess the question is, how are the Orioles doing right now?
I mean, they haven't officially clinched yet. I think the magic number's 2, but the more I look into it, the magic number's worth about as much as Monopoly money. It really, that's not the thing you focus on. It was 3 over the weekend, and they still could have clinched on that day. What they need to do, if they win tomorrow and either the Twins or the Royals lose, then they're in, something like that. One or the other, they're in. And it's going to probably be wild card. Let's be honest. They're behind 6 for first place with 6 games left. So I'm saying they've got a chance. Probably not. But the wild card, they were up by 4, but they still, they could have clinched at home over the weekend. They couldn't do it, and the Tigers are red hot now, which caused a problem. And something about the Twins are now the first team out, so you kind of watch them. I think that's what it is. If the Twins lose tomorrow and the Orioles win, they're in. But also if the Royals, I think that's it now. It's no longer the Mariners. It's this weird formula. So we assume they're going to be in. And then what shape, they are getting healthier. They're getting guys back now. That's a good thing, but they're certainly not on a roll. They have no momentum build, and that is a concern. They're a below 500 team since the break.
Roch, can we blame the front office for not doing enough from the break?
I mean, they got Zach Eflin, and that was huge. I mean, that's one of the best pickups of the deadline, and I don't know where they'd be without him. I mean, he's like 6 quality starts out of his 7 starts. But, they wanted to bolster the bullpen, and you had a couple of guys out there that could have helped. I can't believe I was wondering about a Tanner Scott reunion. I'm still scarred from some of the Tanner Scott meltdowns before, but he's a whole different guy. But they weren't going to give away certain players on the farm, and it's the same guys everybody was asking for. They want Kobe Mayo, or they want Heston Kjerstad, or Samuel Basayo, the catching prospect, who's like, their number 2 prospect now. They ask about Colton Cowser, or certainly no Jackson Holiday. If you take all those guys off the table, then you weren't going to get, what you wanted. So they basically recreated the back end of the Phillies bullpen. I know a lot of Phillies fans say, wait a minute, didn't you watch the playoffs last year? But, actually the bullpen's been pretty good for them. The rotation has. It's just the offense, they're just not scoring runs. But, they were counting a lot on getting guys back, which is slowly happening now with Jordan Westburg and Ramon Arias coming back yesterday. And Ryan Mountcastle was on his rehab assignment. The minor league season's over, but he could be back in New York by tomorrow. And that lineup looked a lot deeper yesterday, just getting those first 2 guys back, and then when Mountcastle's in. So I think they're counting on that and some guys to finally heat up a little bit. But it has been a struggle offensively for them. And earlier in the year, they looked like they were going to score 10 runs a game. And then there was just a complete shutdown.
What's going on with Adley? Last 3 months, been struggling. Seems like it's up and down. Just can't figure out whatever he can't figure out. What's going on with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think the approach a little bit. We saw him. He had a really big opposite field RBI hit a little while ago. We were like, that's the Adley we know. It just seems like he's kind of gotten away from the approach that had made him so good. And guys start pressing after a while. It looks like they're swinging, from the heels and trying to pull everything. And then it gets in your head a little bit, but it's really been, he had like one stretch where it looked like he was snapping out of it. He's had some better at-bats, this month. But overall, the whole second half, it's been, we were talking, possible MVP votes in the first half. And then, he's really, really struggled. We know he's a better hitter than that from both sides of the plate. So it has been a curiosity. And, they've talked about guys that get, tend to get a little too big all of a sudden in the box when they're slumping. And that's what I think we've seen from a few of these guys, including Adley. They've gotten away from that, the approach of, don't swing at anything that's not in your hot zone. And, they start chasing a little bit. And you also have, I'm going to point out the inconsistent strike zones in the majors. Guys like Adley and Gunnar and some others really pride themselves on having a good eye. And if you take anything that you think is borderline, but it's a ball, it ends up getting called a strike, you might start chasing a little bit. He's been out of sorts, and he's trying to get it back. He's hitting early, but if he really heats up, that would make a huge difference for them. But, he was batting second. They've dropped him to 5th. They had lowered him more than that at one point. They're trying to get him going.
I noticed in the game against Detroit the other day, you mentioned Jordan Westburg. He comes back, hits a game-tying double. How, we look at that lineup, and we do tend to focus on Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson in particular. But Jordan Westburg seems to me to have really emerged as a guy who is anytime this team gets going offensively or has a big rally, he has done something to be part of it. We saw it here in Toronto. Same thing, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like, he was giving them some of their best at-bats. And, he's a young hitter, his first full major league season. And, they like him at second base, they like him at third base. And that was a big bat that was removed. And, I know everybody's dealing with injuries for sure, but the Orioles really have just been, pummeled by them. And that was another huge loss, hit by a pitch on the hand. A lot of pitchers coming in around the hands. We've seen quite a bit of that. and ends up fracturing the hand. It was took a while to come back, and he was trying not to rush the process because if he couldn't contribute, couldn't swing the bat, it wasn't going to do him any good. He comes back yesterday and drives it ball into the deepest part of left center field. He does make a big difference. And that is one of the reasons why the lineup becomes much deeper. And also it allows the Orioles to not play Jackson Holliday as much. I mean, he's been scuffling. We know he's a really special talent, 1-1, got all the tools, but really is other than a few games where he's had some really big hits for them, he's laboring. He's under 200, but he's pretty much been playing every day at second unless they put, Levan Soto there. Well, now you've got Westburg can be the primary second baseman with Urias at third, and then they could do a few other things. They're not going to bury Holliday, but you just don't have to play him as often, and certainly not against left-handed pitching now.
Well, it sounds like they're not a perfect team, Roch. And I think, sometimes when we talk about the Blue Jays, you can point to exactly going into the offseason sort of what they need, right? Power hitters to protect Vladdy, need a closer, you need a little bit more depth in the rotation. What would this tell the front office and the new ownership sort of exactly what maybe that could help, the shortstop, the catcher, and whoever else veteran guy you might bring in there?
Yeah, I mean, there's areas, the rotation, and they were smart. Some of the moves they made at the deadline were really also aimed at 2025. Eflin's under team control, and they got Trevor Rogers from the Marlins for a couple prospects, including Connor Norby, that was swinging the bat really well for them. And then he ended up getting optioned after like 4 starts, but they really like him, and it's somebody they can bring back next year again because Corbin Burns probably leaving as a free agent. I don't know if the Orioles are going to get in the bidding war there. John Means is a free agent, but he's also recovering from another Tommy John. Kyle Bradish, Tyler Wells won't be available till maybe later, at the second half next year after their elbow surgery. So I think they still have to address the rotation somewhat. The bullpen, Felix Bautista will be back to close, but they're always looking to strengthen that area. And they're going to have to look offensively and see if there's a big bat out there that can help them. I'm not sure what they're going to do in the outfield because Anthony Santander, 43 homer switch hitter, a guy that I thought there was no chance that they were going to bring back with a rising salary. He's a free agent, and I have to wonder if they would, and a guy who really does want to stay and they love him, if maybe they go ahead and try and get him back. But if not, he's gone. There's no guarantee Cedric Mullins is back. He's arbitration eligible, probably, but had a really poor first half. Austin Hayes is gone now, obviously traded. Kyle Stowers traded. Said maybe they're in the market for an outfielder. We don't know if Ryan Mountcastle's back at first base, arbitration eligible again. I mean, there's a lot of areas they could address here, and we don't know what the offseason is going to look like because it is new ownership, and we don't know. We've never had David Rubenstein in the offseason. I think people hear billionaire and assume it's going to be where he's just going to be throwing money all over like he's tossing caps to the crowd by the dugout in some games, but we don't know if he's going to do that or not. It's not. We can't automatically assume that they're going to start breaking the bank because they have new ownership.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other things they're going to do with that money, including for the ballpark improvements and everything else. So we're not sure what to expect, but I have a feeling they'll be raising the payroll a little bit more than it has been in the past. But they do have a lot of areas that they're going to be looking at. I think it's going to be a very busy and interesting offseason.
Yeah, Roch, it strikes me as we've talked now for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years about the Orioles minor league depth and how you've got to manage the depth. You've got to manage when it comes through. You've got to manage how it comes through. Of course, eventually payroll starts to bite and all that. Do you think this offseason is kind of the first real test of this front office in terms of their ability to identify who you can't? I don't think you can have a core of 7 players. I think you have to have a smaller core of your own players. Do you think this is a test of this front office's ability to identify that core and that maybe they might have to move on from somebody, one of their top prospects?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly if there's a piece out there in a trade they really want that they think is a big difference maker, it does get to the point where you have to be like, okay, I don't know if overvaluing is the right word, but sometimes you overvalue your own guys, or it's just this is a reason that you build up the farm system the way they did. Because some of those guys help you directly, and some of them you can ship out in return for pieces. They've done a good job up to this point of not giving up a top guy to do that. Mm-hmm. They've been able to make some acquisitions with some of the shortstop depth that they had without touching Holiday. And some of these other moves they made, including Norby and Stowers, guys they really liked but felt like they were blocked or expendable. But at some point, you're right. I mean, they may have to go ahead and make a tough call with some of these other guys. Also, they're not picking first or second anymore.
Right.
And that changes things as well. And they're not the number one farm system anymore. I don't believe, maybe in the last ranking, depending on the outlet. I don't think they're viewed as one anymore because these guys have graduated. Now, there's another wave that moved up to AAA, including Messiah, who's this really special talent. Yes, he's a catcher, but you can always, he's not going to be ready next year, but he's in AAA and he also plays some first base. He can coexist with Rutschman for however long you have Adley Rutschman. But a lot of teams love this guy, and we were told off the table. Mayo the same way. Mayo really struggled in a relatively short sample size when he came up, but 4 hits, a lot of strikeouts. They've been working on his defense, clearly not trusting him enough to play third base to just keep him in there every day. So, you're right. There's going to be some decisions made. Would we be willing, or should we be parting with somebody here while the value is still viewed as really high in the industry to bring in, whether it is a pitcher or one of these other players?
Okay, last question before we let you run. Given what we've seen from Adley Rutschman in the second half, is there any, and given the fact that they have this catching prospect, any possibility at all, Roch, that at some point they look at moving Adley to first base or getting him out from behind the plate? Even, well, I mean, I know they've DH'd him. That's obviously a way they could do it. But do you think that's on the cards at all?
I don't think anytime soon, but clearly down the road, because he does have some first base experience, that would be a way, if he's hitting really well,
right,
to keep the bat in the lineup and reduce some of the wear and tear. But, he's DH'd quite a bit this year. James McCann has made a lot of starts. So that was one way to try to keep him fresh. And, he may be more banged up than he's letting on. Like, when he really started to dip is when he got hit in the hand. And he had a back issue before. There was some tightness in his back. And he insisted multiple times that he's fine physically. That's not the issue. But would he really tell us if it was? Would he stand there in his locker and say, yes, my hand's sore, my back's sore, I'm banged up, I don't feel right? He's avoided the IL, but I would not be shocked if, he's trying to play through some things as well. But I think down the road, they could look at, maybe once in a while first base. But at this point, they've had other options there. They just seem to be more comfortable with him DHing, which for them is like a day off for him. Right. And then playing McCann, who, by the way, is a pending free agent. And another decision they got to make. They're going to need a veteran catcher to back him up and maybe just bring back McCann because they also really like him.
Roch, thanks so much for doing this, man. Have fun in the Bronx.
Always have fun in the Bronx.
Yeah, I know you do. I don't need to tell you that. But I mean, I'm talking about at the,
on the field.
I'm talking about at the ballpark. I'm not talking about the other stuff.
Right.
Take care, man. Be
See
well,
you, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Roch Kubatko covers the Orioles for Masson, and that's the Adley Rutschman thing is really interesting. Look, I kind of went out in the limb at the start of the year. We had to make our MVP picks. I picked him as my MVP candidate because I've been all in on him. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be all in on him. But I do wonder, I wonder, Kevin, if you're a new owner. I wonder if you're not looking at this postseason maybe with a little more of a critical eye than other people are. I mean, if they don't win the first round now, it's 2 years in a row. Yeah. This window of opportunity that they've come up short. You couple that with the fact that they've really been on fumes in the second half. I wonder if maybe David Rubenstein doesn't at some point, in addition to going out and adding some free agents, because I'd love to hit in that park, go out and
unless you're a righty.
Yeah. But I mean, as a lefty, I'd be okay there.
That's not bad.
I wonder if at some point he doesn't go to the front office and say, look, I mean, it's great having all these young guys, but they can't all come up at the same time. And it's funny, just thinking about listening to Roch, we were watching MLB Network. They had Bernie Williams on. And one of the things that I always say this, but it's true, one of the things that the Yankees did in the 90s, in the late 80s and 90s, when they set the foundation for that great run, is they made the right call on the right players.
Yeah.
Like they got rid of who they had to get rid of. They kept Bernie Williams. They got rid of Roberto Kelly. Like they made all these really smart decisions.
Yeah, I think it's when you're all in. When are you all in? That's the question. Like what year?
Should have been month? All in. But you see, and that's the thing. The Orioles acted to me like they were all in this year, going out and getting Zach Eflin. Now we talked about this. You wonder if Detroit makes the playoffs, if you're the Orioles, you're sitting there thinking, should we have maybe gone after Tariq Skubal even more? Yeah, it would have cost us some young players. But now you look at adding him, and you've got him under control. I mean, you can, if you think you're not signing Corbin Burns next year, and it doesn't look like they will, I really wonder if you had a redo. Do you maybe shoot for the moon there instead of Zach Eflin and go after, just do what it takes to get Skubal?
Yeah, I think it's that guy walking into the room where, holy moly, they really believe in us. We're really going for this thing. Eflin does it. That's what I think, right? I mean, he's a solid piece. I think he's predictable. He ain't an aircraft carrier. Like, it ain't like, like, oh, look, now we're in go mode. Like, no, I don't think that's it. That's the question, right, is you got all this to choose from. You got to make sure you keep the right one or two. Mm-hmm. When are you pushing all your chips into the middle of the table? And does it matter about the East? Where do you feel like the Blue Jays are at as an organization? Where do you feel like the Red Sox are at? Do you feel like because the Rays have all this pitching now that they're a serious contender and you can compete against them and be there for long term? Like, that's all has to come into play. I know what they come on our show and say. We don't worry about whether other organizations. You wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't.
I wonder.
So when they all in, that's my question.
We'll ask David Samson about this. He joins us in a few minutes, but I wonder how the teams in the AL East are, especially the teams that aren't making the playoffs this year. But I'll include the Orioles in this as well. I wonder how they are viewing the Yankees and Juan Soto. Because if you're an AL East team, you're going into the offseason. If the Yankees don't sign Juan Soto, does that change what you do? We'll ask Samson this because, I mean, I'm not saying that everybody sits around and says, hey, let's not do anything until we know what Soto's going to do, because it's entirely possible, given Scott Boras, that goes on for a while. But I'm wondering if we may not be seeing, if something may not happen in the market involving AL East teams.
I think you got to be real with your core. Make sure your core's for real. I mean, do you really think Adley is legit and can carry this long term? Like, give it to you for 4.5 months instead of 2.5 months. Like, right now, this year, he's giving it to you 2.5 months. That's not good enough, right? And then you're expecting him to catch fire and be the man when it matters the most. It's everybody, do you feel like
everybody loves that catch?
Do you have
their minor league catcher?
Again, do you think it's real? Like, I think you got to start from the inside out. Know who you got there.
Like, to me, Gunnar Henderson's real.
Well, yeah, defensively, is he a shortstop every day? I think that's what you got to ask yourself. Defensively, can he help you win a World Series? Can you win a World Series with him standing at short?
I think you can.
Well, I mean, you got to. I think ain't a good answer.
No.
Like, it just ain't. Like, that, I think, this is where, when you see your team having the hiccup that they're having now, you got to sort of take a step back and go, is this dude for real? Is this dude for real? Like, do I have to add a piece here? Do we have to add more catching depth? Like, do we have to give this more time at first? Like, these are for real questions that you need answers to in a hurry. Yeah. And I think, to your point about if they get thumped in the first round by a team that they shouldn't be getting thumped by,
see, I don't
then
even.
You gotta really have.
I don't even know if it
answers.
matters. I don't think it matters who beats them in the first round. If they don't get out of the first round, at that point, I think you have to.
For me, it's more about what they haven't done the last month and a half of the season. That's more important for me.
David Samson.
He'll have an answer for us.
Of course he will.
We'll get right to the.
Of course he will.
Nuts and bolts of this
former
thing.
MLB executive with the Marlins and Expos. He's host of Nothing Personal, the podcast with David Samson. He'll join us next. Shi Davidi as well. And I got tickets to give away to the final homestand of the 2024 season. It is Blair and Barker for a Monday on the Sportsnet Radio Network and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker for a Monday. 7:07 will be the first pitch tonight as the Jays start their final homestand of the 2024 season. Indeed, as they start the final week of the 2024 season with 3 games against the Boston Red Sox, followed by 3 games against the Miami Marlins. The Jays 73 and 83. They will not finish at 500 this year.
Wishful thinking.
Well, I mean, you were.
I had it laid out.
You had it laid out.
I did.
Yeah. it was interesting watching you say, well, they only have to go 8-1 in the next
10-2.
10-2.
I said.
That's all they have to
Be
do
nice.
is go 10-2, and
Yeah.
then we're good. So, yes, it is the final week of the regular season here in Toronto. There will be no playoff baseball. It is also the final week of games for the Oakland Athletics, as the Athletics play. I believe it's a 4-game series they have against Texas. Then they wrap up the season in Seattle, and then they're off to Sacramento for next year. David Samson is host of Nothing Personal, the podcast with David Samson. He's a former MLB executive as well with the Marlins and Expos. Lots to talk to David Samson about. As always, David, thanks for joining us. There's a ton of stuff I wanted to get to with you, but I wanted to ask you about the Athletics. This is the final game in Oakland, final games in Oakland. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the A's of Joe Rudy and Reggie Jackson and the White Shoes and Charlie O'Finley and all that great stuff. How do you think baseball will remember the Oakland Athletics, David?
I think for the next 6 years, they'll remember them as for the botched relocation. I think we can go to Montreal and think about how people viewed the Expos, and there was a lot of rancor and anger and frustration and upset when they went to Washington. And then as the years pass and the decades pass, you sort of think about what was accomplished when they were in Montreal. And I think the same thing about Oakland. But this relocation's been obviously way more clumsy than what happened in Montreal when even baseball owned them, and how crazy that whole thing was that, of course, I was involved in. But for right now, John Fisher, he released a letter to the fans today. He's trying to get out of there as cleanly as possible, but nothing's been clean at all because the reality is that they don't really know what they're doing. They're going to Sacramento, but there's no agreement with the union yet, but there will be. The Vegas building has not started to get built, so it's all pretty strange.
Yeah, is this and you're right. It's look, when baseball left Montreal, obviously people in Montreal were really obviously they were really upset about it. But that I got the sense around baseball from, and I was pretty close to the situation, and a lot of people I spoke to said, yeah, it's too bad, but it had to be done. And I don't get that sense with Oakland. I get people saying, yeah, it's too bad, but thank God it's over.
Yeah, there was no stadium deal that was ever done, whether it was under Bronfman or under Jacques Menard or any of the people who were in Montreal. And the feeling is that John Fisher could have had a deal done at the Howard Terminal or somewhere else, and it just never happened. And I think what's made Oakland so bad is that Vegas has just not been organized. The whole interim move to Sacramento hasn't really been well organized. And it's really cost them PR. It's cost them any sort of momentum in Sacramento that they could have gotten for this interim period, or maybe even a longer term if the Vegas stadium doesn't open on time, which is really unlikely for that to happen, in my opinion. So everything just was a problem. And the fans felt aggrieved where they just, even this week, they wanted the upper deck opened or a certain part of the Coliseum opened. It just seems that there have been missteps every point, which has made this a bigger issue.
David, are there any other dominoes to fall here in terms of, does this open the door to relocation? This plus, I'm sorry, not relocation, expansion. This plus, I guess, Tampa, clearing another hurdle recently to get their ballpark built. Does this sort of put expansion on the table, even more in the middle of the table now from your mind? Or do we just have to wait and see where Oakland goes, how this turns out before anything happens?
It's funny because what baseball has always said is we can't talk about expansion until Oakland and Tampa are taken care of. And the funny part is that when we started talking about expansion, and this is 15 years ago, where you have meetings and there's committee meetings about different cities and different realignments and all sorts of things, because baseball wants to get to 32 teams, period. Mm-hmm. They will get to 32 teams, but the entryway was always, let's take care of Oakland and Tampa. Well, let's pretend that Tampa's taken care of, which it is. I think that deal is now finished. Let's say that Oakland's taken care of, sort of, that they're going to be in Sacramento and then Vegas. But now it's taken so long that in Arizona, they're having major issues getting their stadium situation. Are they going to do a refurb, or do they want a new building? Are they going to relocate? It's very unlikely, but you've got to leave that open as a threat. The Chicago White Sox are trying to get a new building where relocation is sort of being used as a threat with funny meetings in Nashville and all of the craziness that Jerry Reinsdorf does. So there's always going to be a team or teams that are having stadium issues that want relocation as a threat. At some point, baseball is going to have to say, listen, it doesn't matter where all the other teams are. It's now time for expansion. And I've maintained that the owners want that expansion fee. I think that is going to be the most important part here, which is why I think expansion is going to happen in the next 5 years. Doesn't mean play is going to start in the next 5 years, because as you remember, it takes a while once expansion's announced. But I think you will see expansion announced here in the next 5 years.
David, should we get used to not seeing 100-win teams?
It's interesting. Isn't this the first year since 2014 that there won't be a 100-win team? And so, no, I think that this year's sort of been an anomaly. However, one thing that Bud Selig always talked about in meetings, and then Rob continued, they love the idea. Bud's big word, hope. We want everybody to have hope every single spring training. Of course, that's absurd because, as you know, the season is 500, which is obvious. As many wins and losses if you add them up over the 30 teams. And realistically, you're never going to have 30 teams with hope. But if you look at the NFL, parity is something they love. If you look at MLB, there is parity, no repeat champions since the Yankees of 98 to 2000. So everybody's trying to get parity. And part of parity, really, to me, is mediocrity. And I think that is what can be the result of too much parity. So I would say that we need to wait another year or two. But it is possible that the super team thing is not going to be happening.
If I'm not a super team and I'm going into the offseason, I'm trying to retool and make another run at this thing, would that win total not being around 100 for the super teams help me in any way if I'm a lesser team?
So, no, because you're actually solving for the number of wins of the third wild card. So what teams do is we'll sit down and we'll say, all right, we won 82 games. The third wild card had 89 games, 89 wins. We have to find 7 more wins. Where are we going to find it? What signings do we need to do? How much does our payroll need to go up to find those 7 wins? That's the talk in front offices. But realistically, it's hard to know if your rebuild's going to work. Some of them work. Baltimore's worked. Some of them don't. I'd say Toronto would be an example of a window that did not work. So it really depends on the team. The Marlins made the playoffs, and now they did a step back to 100 losses this year. So it's all very there's no science, unfortunately.
Yeah, when you're a front office and you're watching your team who is out of it, and the last week of the season here is coming up, what do you focus on when you're sitting in your booth watching your team play?
Exit interviews. You're focused on your off season. You're focused on figuring out, making sure that the exit interviews are planned for the players. You know about your coaching staff. You're figuring out when you're going to tell them who's coming back, who's not, what you're doing with your manager. You're looking to get a payroll from your owner so you can start the off season literally the next day. When we had bad seasons, which we had plenty of bad ones, we started work the next day on the next year's roster because we so badly wanted to turn the page. We would start it immediately in sales and marketing, anything to get rid of the previous season.
So no player or no coach can change your mind in the last week of the season. You've already made up your mind of what's happening, who's coming back.
For sure.
Okay.
It is so ridiculous. I read just last week, or maybe it was this week, that the San Francisco Giants were going to wait till the end of the season to decide about Farhan, as an example. It's such horse hockey. They know exactly whether they're retaining him or not. They know whether or not what they're going to offer to Blake Snell in free agency. These decisions are ones that aren't based on one start or one stretch of games. The Giants have been out of it for weeks, if not more. So it's funny when teams say we're going to wait.
Yeah, David, we had Roch Kubatko on a couple of minutes ago talking about the Baltimore Orioles and talking about the decisions they're going to face in the offseason, the new owner, and they've got all these young guys coming through. And Kevin and I were talking about this a little bit off the air. The Jays have played the Rays this weekend, and just not necessarily beating the Jays makes the Rays impressive, but the Rays are the Rays. I think a lot of people think they'll rebound. The Orioles, again, going into the offseason with all this young talent. It seems to me that the Juan Soto decision is going to have major implications for this division. If he's here, major implications. If he isn't here, major implications as well. The front offices sit there when going into the offseason around general managers meetings or whatever and go, we'll have this plan if the Yankees have Soto. We'll have this plan if they don't have Soto.
No.
Does that enter into it at all?
Not even. It's never mentioned. The only thing that's mentioned is we'd prefer the best players not to be on the teams in our division. We'd prefer for players on the other teams to get hurt. And I'm not saying we root for it, but it's not like we're upset when the number one pitcher goes down. We don't publicly say, oh, my God, thank God he's injured. But it's like, all right, let's see how deep they are because we're not that deep. But no, we don't. The owner doesn't say, hey, if Soto's in the division, our payroll is X. If Soto's not in the division, our payroll is X plus Y or even X minus Y.
But the general managers become a little more aggressive knowing that. Because I guess what I'm getting at is, the Juan Soto thing, it's Scott Boras. It could be over in February. I think we all know there's only a couple of teams he's going to go to, but I don't know. Maybe Scott wants to rag the puck a bit, to borrow a hockey phrase. You can't sit there as another organization and say, well, we could make that deal, but, we're looking long term here, and our window of opportunity really kind of depends on what the Yankees do. You can't take that approach, can you?
No, but here's what we do. For a free agent like Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani, it's irrelevant. But when you talk about lower level free agents, there's some times that we will hold off to see where that market is to make sure that we slot properly, either below or above, depending on the player we're looking at. And sometimes we'll hold money back until February so we have opportunities to sign the way the Giants actually did when they did all those late signings this year. So we'll look at cash flow and look at the allocation of payroll and then decide on the timeline of when we're going to sign free agents. As you'll recall, the great example is there's a team, and of course, we're live and I'm blanking. Somebody signed James McCann to a ridiculous contract because they couldn't wait for the Mets.
The Mets, right.
The Mets signed McCann because they were so impatient they didn't want to wait for JT.
That's right.
I believe that's exactly what happened. So once in a while that comes up where the owner will panic and say, we've got to get this guy because if we don't, and then we don't get that guy, then we'll have nobody. But recently, I think owners have gotten a little smarter that you don't want to really chase. Because if you chase a player, you really do end up overpaying. And if you panic sign a player, which God knows I did so many times, you're going to overpay in that instance also.
David, with the way the seasons have ended the last couple of years with the teams that have won it, do you think this year, like there's a couple of stories, right? The best record in the American League, best record in the National League, right? That's sort of a close race. How big of a deal you think that is for these two teams in the National League, two teams in the American League to try and fight for, if it came down to the last day, we're pitching our best pitcher, we're using our bullpen to the fullest to get the best record. You think it's a big deal?
I do, because you'd like to have home field advantage throughout, even though in baseball, I would say home field advantage is the least important. But on the other hand, you'd rather have 4 games at home because it's more revenue. So we would want our team to win, and the players would rather be at home, although some like being on the road more, but generally you'd rather be at home. So I would say it matters. However, if you are a division winner and you have to play the first wild card round, and you're fighting for home field advantage in the World Series, I'm saving my ace for game 1 of the wild card round. But if I have a bye in the first round and I know that my number 1 pitcher is going to get to pitch game 1 anyway, then I'm going to try to get home field advantage.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Hey, C.J. Abrams got sent down to the non-existent minor league season by the Washington Nationals for
He thinks it's funny.
staying out at a casino late at night.
Yeah.
You ever
I hope he won more than 30 grand.
Well, I was going to say, although I thought it was interesting. I think it was Ron Darling and Keith Hernandez were talking about it, and one of them said, "Well, I can see staying out till casino till 4, but not till 7." And the other guy said, "Well, that sounds like the voice of experience speaking." And with either one of those guys, it could be the case. Did you guys ever do anything like that with a young guy to send a message to the other players on the team?
Oh, we definitely would send players down for messages, but we'd have to couch it in performance to avoid a grievance.
Right.
But no, it was never based on curfew. We had players, I was saying on Nothing Personal today that I would just tell Miguel Cabrera, please try to change clothes and don't come to the game in yesterday's clothes. I would, laugh at Hanley. There's a bunch of players who were either out all night or, we didn't do real bed checks and we didn't have someone at the door like they did in COVID. Paying attention to that. They're men. We're expecting them to do their job. And of course, sometimes I get criticized because, hey, they're only 20 or 21 or 22. They're not men. And my view is, well, like in college, you all want to get paid. You want to be employees. We're going to treat you like the men that you are. And it's his responsibility to play. And if he can stay up till 8 in the morning and then play well, then that's up to him. I'll give you another great example. Dan Ugla. Yeah. I spoke to Dan Ugla 1,000 times. Man, don't you want more sleep? And he's like, I'm good. And his performance was great. So I said, you've got it. You may pay the price later in your career, but it ain't going to be our issue. And so we would talk about that with the guys. But they are, what do you think happens when you give money to people who are young? And this is not just in sports. This is in the world. They end up partying and doing stuff, and that's life. And as long as you're doing your job, you have to do your job. That to me was always the most important thing.
Yeah, when Frank Howard was managing, his line used to be, "How can you pound the baseball tomorrow if you're not going to pound the bud tonight?" And I've always kind of thought that that's probably that. And if you don't do the crime if you can't do the time, were the sort of two things.
So I just would add, my guess is there was more going on with this kid than just one night out till 8 a.m. So I can't speak to what he was like in the clubhouse.
Right.
I can't speak to whether or not he missed team buses or missed team planes or missed workouts or wasn't ready for stretch. Who knows? This could have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah. This could be Mike Rizzo being grumpy. There's myriad things that could have gone on with this C.J. Abrams situation. But for me, a isolated incident of a guy rumbling and stumbling into the hotel at 8 a.m., forget it. I've seen guys rumble and stumble into the clubhouse at 12:10 p.m. For a 1 o'clock game. And hey, you're in the lineup. Get out there, and you better not go 0 for 4 today.
What would you need to see from Ohtani to let him pitch in the playoffs?
I'd have to see him part the Red Sea.
He might do that. He's got a week left. He's got a week left. He might do it.
Yeah.
There is no scenario he's pitching.
No.
That was another crazy thing that Dave Roberts said. It was totally ridiculous. He is, if Andrew Friedman lets Ohtani pitch in the postseason, that is so reckless and so irresponsible. It's not going to happen.
Doesn't hurt to put it in your opponent's mind, though, does it?
Who cares? Do they care? Jeff says this all the time. They don't care. Oh, Ohtani's lurking in the 7th inning.
No.
It's like, really?
It's not.
No.
I don't agree with that. It's not like when you're doing your hitters meeting, preparing for a series, that you're going through the pitching staff and you're like, hey, this guy could pitch. We might as well prepare for him. They will not be preparing for Ohtani. There's no reason for it. He's not going to pitch. It makes zero sense given what he is rehabbing from. Don't forget, coming back from 2 Tommy Johns, not easy at all.
Okay, I will be saying this, though. When you see a dude go 50-50 and he wants to pitch next year, David, I got to be honest with you. I'm getting a bunch of dudes, including him, in a room and going, hey, you sure you don't want to DH the rest of your career and just see if you can go 60-60 for the next 9 years in a row? Like, you wouldn't have that conversation with him?
No, because he got paid the money he got paid in order to do both. And I grant you that at sort of $46 million a year, which is what it is on a present value, you could say, maybe he's just a hitter at that amount. But when they signed him, they want to have him as a two-way. And by the way, the Dodgers need him to pitch, as you know, given their rotation and the health of their rotation and the bodies they have, even going into next year. So they really do want to see if he can do both. And I don't want to yuck on his 50-50 yum, and I would never do that. But when I'm looking at my team, I'm very happy that Ohtani is on the team, to say the least. He's the best player in baseball. I'm not thinking about 50-50. It doesn't matter to me. I'm thinking about October. And what the Dodgers need is they need to win the pennant, get to the World Series, and try to win that series as well. That's what they brought Ohtani in for. All of this extra stuff is fantastic. It's great marketing. It's great for MLB. But this month coming up, that's why Ohtani is a Dodger, and that's why the Dodgers wanted Ohtani. So that, to me, is way more important than anything that happens during the regular season.
Last question. Who's the best team in baseball right now, and who's going to win the World Series? And that answer could be two different teams today.
I certainly don't want to play the Cleveland Guardians because I am scared to death of Class A. I cannot even imagine what it is to go into a game where he's not going to give up a run. He's just not. So you've got 8 innings at best to get a lead, and their lineup is such that if it gets hot, that lineup is good enough to go with that bullpen and that rotation. But again, they have to do it like the Dodgers last year. If Betts, Freeman, and Ohtani go 2 for 30 in the division series, they're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So just like they lost last year to the Diamondbacks when Betts and Freeman were 1 for 21. So you asked me who's going to win. I wouldn't have said Arizona versus Texas last year. Nobody would have. And if they did, I think they were just doing it for fun. So when I look at all the teams in the playoffs, you'd expect that Yankees, Dodgers is a real possibility. The Phillies are a real possibility. But are you willing to say that Houston's done? Are you really? Are you willing to say that the Guardians for sure can be beaten, which likely they can, but are you sure? What about the Mets? What if they're the hottest team and they get into the playoffs, which they're in position to now, and they run the table by some miracle? That's why I think this October, given what we learned last year, this October is going to be amazing.
I'm shocked you didn't mention the Padres. You mentioned 5 teams instead of the Padres. He does. You don't like the Padres?
So, just so you know, and all the work I do with you and nothing personal and with CBS, I will never mention the Padres.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's fair. I had to ask because
there you go.
There is no way that I like some of the players on the team, of course, but I do not believe that A.J. Preller deserves to have a ring.
That's fair. Well, why I ask you?
We will mark you down as undecided on A.J. Preller. Thanks for doing this, David, as
You're
always.
the best, buddy. It's awesome.
Take care.
Thanks.
I'll see you soon.
See you later.
Absolutely. David Samson is host of Nothing Personal.
Oh, I had to ask
There's
about
a
the
story
Padres. Yeah, you think? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's that was interesting. I like David talking about how organizations go about planning in the offseason. And I do agree with him. I don't think the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season changes anybody's mind. Like, I think the Jays know whether or not I think they know whether or not John Schneider's going to be the manager next year. I think he will be, but I think they've known that for a while. I don't think anything can happen. I don't think a decision.
It's the hitting coach's part of it, I think. And
Yeah.
it's those dudes on the fringe that you think could help your team going into next season.
Yeah.
Are they going to be on your
I
team?
will say
That's
this.
the
I will
ones.
say this. I don't think anybody in the organization thought that they would be possibly thinking of Will Wagner as their opening day second baseman the day they made that deal. I think he probably opened some eyes that way. But I don't like what else has changed. We haven't really learned anything on about Yariel Rodriguez. I don't think. I think
They paid him a lot of money. He's going to
to
get a chance. That's what I know.
We might feel a little better about Alejandro Kirk. Maybe we think that he can catch more games next year than we thought originally.
Seventh and catch a 95 games.
Yeah, but I mean that's. I think everything else we've thought about this team. You made a great point. As exciting as this team has been, as fun as this team has been, they're 10 games under 500. I mean, they were swept by a team that will be better next year in their division.
I'm picking them to win the East.
That's
early. Me.
That's early.
It's not early.
That's early.
Oh, the Orioles will take a step back. The Red Sox can't get out of their own way. Who knows what the Blue Jays are going to do? And the Yankees are the Yankees, and the Rays sometimes can beat the Yankees. There you go.
I've got tickets to give away to see the Jays.
Why don't you give them away?
Well, let's take a break now and come back and do it on the other side. Shi Davidi joins us as well.
See what you did there.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking through some things. Thinking on the fly, my friend. Thinking on the fly. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, it is the final week of the 2024 regular season.
I'm sad.
I'm too. We'll be moving to 3 to 4 on, I guess, a week from Tuesday.
Who's winning the World Series?
I don't know. I have.
Let's go. I'll have to
Why are you
your
asking?
time.
I said Atlanta. I said Atlanta over Houston, so I'm wrong. I'm going to be wrong. Okay. Right now,
the teams, yeah.
Can I change it at the end of the week?
Absolutely. No.
Oh.
Well, you can. If you say the Guardians, I'm throwing this book at you.
I am going to say.
I don't know what David's talking about.
No, I'm not going to pick it yet. I got to think about it.
Really?
Yeah, I got to think about it. We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here in Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590 standard massage, and data rates may apply. Our last question and answer was Kevin Biggio became the first player to hit for the cycle for Toronto since this player, who also played for the Red Sox, Rangers, and Rockies during his career. The answer was Jeff Fry. F-R-Y-E.
Did you know that?
Yes, I did, because I covered it, and I told you the story about him hammering all the Toronto writers, and then looking at me and going, what's your name again? I said, I'm one of the writers.
Did you deserve it?
Of course we all did. Do you think I rose to the defense of the writers? Not a chance. Well, I mean, a lot of what he said was true. I mean, some of it wasn't, but a lot of it was.
That's why I respect you. You own it.
Well,
That's what I got to do. Own it.
I didn't say that the stuff that he was wrong about had anything to do with me.
Oh, you weren't. He wasn't talking to you.
Oh yeah, no.
He didn't know he was talking to you.
He was happy. His analysis of the sports writing business
was spot on.
It was about
60-40.
55% accurate.
Oh, okay. Saying there's a chance.
He hated a couple of dudes that I hated too, so that made it easy.
Oh, it's easy. Yeah. You pile on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was easy. Today's question is to win tickets to see. Hate's maybe a strong word. Dislike. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Marlins. Actually, in one case,
you have to put forth effort.
No, in
hate.
one case, hate was the word. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays. Yeah, absolutely. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Marlins at the Rogers Center in September 27th. This pitcher, I got this one too so quickly. This pitcher was a two-time All-Star and spent his entire career with the Marlins, other than one injury-filled season with the Blue Jays. Again, this pitcher was a two-time All-Star and spent his entire career with the Marlins, other than one injury-filled season with the Blue Jays. Text the answer to 590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. And as they say, standard message and data rates may apply. There you go. We're doing Blue Jays talk following the game tonight. Excited about that? I am. It's the Red Sox in town. No Rafael Devers, no Tyler O'Neill. Still excited, though. It's the Red Sox. The Jays could stick a fork in the Red Sox postseason chances, I think, can't they? What are the Red Sox 4 back? They're still in it, aren't they? Because I know the Rays were celebrating the fact that they're still in it.
That just happened there.
Well,
sure.
Whatever. Let's bring in Shi Davidi. Sportsnet MLB Insider. How you doing, Shi?
Hey, buddy.
All right. How are you guys doing?
It's Monday.
Yeah, Red Sox are 4 back of the final wild card. Is there an echo? I just said that, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, they and the Rays, I think they're right in the hunt. I mean, look, we've had some weird final weeks over the last few seasons with the wild card races, right? And
yes.
We've seen a lot of times where a team that you think is for sure going to run away with it just collapse in the final week. I mean, a lot of things would have to go right for that to happen, but I mean, let's get weird. Maybe we can get some crazy tie-break scenarios. Well, let's get something crazy happening.
Yeah, well, that's the motto for this show. Let's get weird. Before we move on to, and it often happens.
Speak for yourself.
Before we move on to the Red Sox, the final week, yada, yada, et cetera, you know, Watching the Rays yesterday, again, I don't want to make too much out of the fact that the Rays swept the Jays, but watching the Rays yesterday and hearing Buck and Dan and talking to some other people, the Rays could be good next year, couldn't they, Shi?
Like, really good.
Yeah.
And, before the series started, I had a couple minutes to just catch up with Kevin Cash. And, I said to him, like, year to year, and I kind of meant this from an industry standpoint, right? But it's like year to year, what part of a team do you tend to think is the most volatile, right? And I expected him to say bullpen, and he said for them it's their run production, right? That's what he feels that they feels like on the pitching side they've been pretty steady, but scoring runs, they've had some really good years and some not so good years. But industry-wide, he agreed that it's the pitching side. But you look at what they've done. He started talking about their bullpen, the way they've transformed things. And you look at some of the talent that they've turned, the way they've turned over their bullpen. Like Pete Fairbanks is hurt, Jason Adams gone. They trade Zach Eflin, and they just keep pitching, right? And it's their capacity to continually churn out power arms. And the stuff the guys were throwing at the Blue Jays this weekend was really impressive. It gives them an opportunity to have a good base, and I think for them right now, you look at the pitching, the guys they've got coming back from injury, they're going to be good on the pitching side. Will they get enough offense? Can they figure out their position player group core? And junior Kevin Arrow certainly looks like he's going to be a factor at some point, and it'd be interesting to see what happens with Brandon Lau, how all that plays out. But if they can figure out the position player core, they're going to definitely be a threat.
Shi, rank the Blue Jays swing and miss out of the pen on the things the front office has to do for the Jays in the offseason.
So, for me, it might even take I think bullpen in general, but yes, swing and miss in the bullpen. It's right up there with finding a cleanup hitter to protect Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think you can go back and forth. Which one do you need a little bit more? You've got to have some leads to ultimately protect. So, you can get a little chicken and egg there. But I think it's right 1A with a cleanup hitter for Vladdy. And I think the damning stat on just how damaging the bullpen has been for this team this year. So last year, they produced 4.6 WAR as calculated by Fangraphs, and this year they're the only team in negative numbers in the major leagues, a little bit around -3. So it's like a 7.5 run swing, and or a 7.5 win swing. You turn that around, and all of a sudden, this team looks a little bit different. The situation this club is quite a bit different. So they've got a lot of work to do in their bullpen. We've talked about this a fair bit, but if they can't figure out leverage, even if you do get a little bit more offense, you could be looking at the first part of the 21 season again, and nobody wants that.
Vladdy is saying that he would love to play third base going into next season. Shi, why is he putting it out there all of a sudden?
It's really interesting, and look, he's talked about it over the course of the year, but I don't think he's ever been as definitive when we spoke on when I speak to him Friday or Saturday, and he flat out said, I would love to go back there, and he obviously wants that to be part of the Blue Jays making the team better, but I think it's a clearer sign yet of how he's willing to move across the diamond just to give the Blue Jays more opportunities to get him someone to hit behind him. And if this lineup, this offense is going to be better next year, they need a real run producer to protect Vladimir Guerrero Jr. because there's just so little reason for teams to pitch to him. It's hard for him to get pitches to hit. He's still finding ways to get knocks, which is just a testament to how good a player he is. But he's really produced 100 RBIs, 30 home runs, a 320-something batting average on an island where teams can choose not to pitch to him, and there's really not much you can do about it. So I think all that is factoring into it, and as the Blue Jays are starting to make their decisions, we know, or we at least expect them to try to take a run at extending him. he's kind of saying, hey, I'm willing to do all these different things so that we could be the best team possible.
Shi, we are in the final week of the season. What is your best guess as to what changes might be occurring on the coaching staff or in the front office?
Well, I would say at this point, just talking to people in different areas of the organization and a lot of the work that's being put in right now in, behind the scenes of different things in the organization, this does not sound like a front office that's going to have much change or expecting much change, right? Like, Ross Atkins is participating in all these different elements of planning for the 2025 season that if you're going to be making a change, like, you're probably not having that person involved in those processes. So, the signs for this have been there for a while, and maybe there's some big surprise coming, but it's being very well hidden. But as things stand now, the reading of the teams, I would not expect to change a general manager, and then with the manager, like if Ross Atkins is back, like, I fully expect John Schneider to be back. It's like, why would you make a change? I don't know how much of what happened this year you can pin on him, right? This is, I think there's certainly a lot of things that have to improve, and the Blue Jays are working very hard at those things. I know John Schneider has put a lot of thought and a lot of conversations with players and his fellow coaches about how to fix things for next year and make things better. So again, all that work going in, you don't let someone who you're going to pull the rug out from under make some of those changes. Now, could there be some other switches? Could maybe Don Mattingly end up in the front office and maybe you make a change in the coaching staff in that way? I think something like that could very well be possible. I know that Don Mattingly's word certainly is valued and his counsel is valued by the front office, and so maybe some sort of change along those lines is a role that he ends up in. But yeah, the people who are expecting there to be some sort of wholesale changes, I could be wrong about that, but the signs that I'm seeing and the things that I'm reading between the lines, I don't see that coming.
If Varsho starts the season on the IL, who's the center fielder to start the season next year?
Good question. I think Nathan Lucas. And look, I think Jonathan Clase is certainly opening some eyes with his ability, and he's an interesting player. Joey Loperfido has put in a ton of work and is making some changes that have a chance to really help him in a big way next year. But if you're kind of thinking about who's the most stable player, kind of know you know what you're going to get, I think right now that's Nathan Lucas, and this is somebody who's been a big league player for a couple of years. Because of the roster issues and playing time, injury, it hasn't worked out that way for him. But you see him play. He's productive. He finds ways to get on base. He can work a walk. He gives you a professional at bat. He's competent in the field. Runs the base as well. He's a major league player, and so I'd expect all things being equal, as with knowing what we know about this team right now, I would think that he's the guy. Varsho needs a little bit of time.
A couple of minor league questions for you. One, in terms of the Arizona Fall League, do we know yet which Jays prospects are going down there? And this is kind of an off-the-wall question, I guess, Shi, but Relvis Martinez is playing again. What are the plans for him? Is he going to play winter ball? And do we need to at least pay attention to him coming into spring training next year?
Okay, so let's start with the AFL list. Arden Zwelling, our Sportsnet colleague, and I put out a list today on Twitter of 8 players that we're expecting to be assigned there. A couple names that may catch or may be familiar for Blue Jays fans: lefty Kendry Rojas, who had a really nice season around an injury with Single A Vancouver. Adrian Pinto, an infielder who played really well for the Canadians down the stretch after he dealt with some injuries. He's going. And another Canadians player, really interesting slugger, Peyton Williams. He's a big man who can hit the ball a long way and had some nice stretches this year. He's another intriguing name who's going to be on the list. There's a few others as well, but Orelvis Martinez is not on that list. And so I think right now there are conversations about whether Orelvis Martinez will play winter ball or not. Part of that is and Kev, you can certainly speak to this. The opportunities for young players can be tough sometimes in winter balls because you have to perform, and the runways aren't always long, and there's a development piece at play there for Martinez. So some of that has to be worked out. And then in terms of should we be paying attention to Orelvis, yeah. I mean, look, I think the fact that he got suspended and it really took away an opportunity for him that he would have gotten with this team, especially given how things played out. And among the many things that went wrong for the Blue Jays this season, him not being able to capitalize on that opportunity is definitely one of them. And so, the Blue Jays are going to need some power. We've been talking about this forever. And the one guy in their farm system who can provide it in a significant way in the near term is Orelvis Martinez. So, how he fits the puzzle is still to be determined. Where on the field he can play, that's still to be determined. But power is
Shi, we're going to let you run. I appreciate your time. We were losing you there in the.
He was holding on as long as he could.
He was holding on.
You could tell. It sounded like he was around a fan. That's what it sounded like. There's a big giant fan. He might be at the field.
I think he is. Anyhow, Shi, we appreciate
that's great info.
joining
That's
us.
great info. It's be intriguing to see the whole Vladdy at third base thing and how they handle that.
Listen,
and,
I'll say it. I think he's going to be the third baseman.
Me too.
Next year.
It just seems like that will be the case. But I understand why he's doing it. There has to be. It can't be Horowitz standing at first base opening day. It just can't be. It can't be.
I don't think it's going to be, Kevin.
Okay.
I don't. I think that's the position.
I think you're a little bit more confident than most. I think that's where a lot of Jays fans are is, I like it's that like you can close your eyes and see Horowitz at first, Wagner and Bo and Vlad, like that's
here's the way I'm looking at it though. Is I think it's easier, and this is why I don't think Spencer Horowitz is necessarily the guy at first base. Is he in the team next year? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be the primary left-handed DH or whatever.
Second baseman.
Yeah. I'm with you, but apparently we're the only ones like that.
Caleb likes him at second too.
Well, yeah, but there are people who know much more than we do who are making these decisions.
Huh. What are you looking at me for?
I think it's easier. I think it's easier to address your offensive issues by filling in at first base or DH. In terms of offensive issues, I'm talking about balance, getting a certain type of hitter in. I think it's easier to do that than at third base.
Yeah, it's okay if he's not hitting cleanup and you got a new left fielder or
and I
a
also
new
think,
DH.
And I also think it gets down to Vladdy is making a decision here that, he thinks if he plays good.
Oh, he knows.
Look, I never
Bass
thought.
has said that for a reason out loud.
Listen, I never thought he'd be winning a Gold Glove at first base, and neither did you. So if Vladdy goes to third base and is good defensively there, that opens a free agent door for him. That allows him to, one, get paid more money, or even beyond that, two, now you got a guy, I got a guy who's won a Gold Glove at first base, maybe twice, and because he might get it this year. And he's played third base for me.
Yep.
And he's a 27-year-old free agent. If I'm a team, all of a sudden, I'm not looking at Vladdy and going, yeah, but you know what? We already got a first baseman, or yeah, but you know what? We already got a third baseman. I think Vladdy to me, it's a sign of how confident the dude is in himself that he wants to do that.
If you're the Blue Jays, you let him do it?
Absolutely. If it makes me better.
Because you know what it is. If you sort of marry to the fact that he's playing third, that sort of forces you to go out and get you a first baseman.
Here's the thing. To me,
that's all.
To me, it doesn't. the Blue Jays, I think, have made the decision about whether they're going to re-sign Vladdy or how they're going to go about doing
absolutely.
it, whether he's at first base, third base, or DH. So I don't think it is. I don't think it's anything to do with that. But yeah, I think Vladdy will be the. I think Vladdy will be the third baseman.
Yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with what they were going to give him with his contract. I think it has the fact to do with, okay, if he moves to third, the first question Jays fans are going to ask, well, who the heck's playing first? Like, is he better or just as good as Vladdy? Or is it Horowitz? No offense to Horowitz, because he'd be my everyday second baseman leading off.
Yeah,
but
by the way, I don't. I know that when you hear the WAR, you kind of roll your eyes a little.
That's
bit.
a giant difference.
That's a
massive.
I did not know that. I mean, I don't
doesn't
get up
tell you everything, but until it's that.
Yeah, I don't get up every day and look at WAR. But when you're talking a 7.5 win swing,
it's a huge number.
7.5 wins is what would that make him? That'd make him
in the hunt.
It'd make him in the hunt.
They'd be playing meaningful baseball right now.
So anyhow,
yeah, that's huge. And you the first one that I remember saying that. Why are they punting on their pin?
I said that when
you did
Garcia
went down. No, you said it when Romano went down.
Well, actually,
that was into May.
Yeah, but then
he went down at the middle of June. You're like, now
only
what?
2 games under 500 at that
game
point.
under 500. And then they lost 7 in a row from the 17th on. And it was basically, well, I'm just stating facts here.
Yeah, no. And I also, I admit, I said that because I've seen this front office do a good job.
And you've seen how important bullpens are in 2024.
That is what I found intriguing. Well, a lot that Shai said interested.
Gave a lot of good stuff.
But the Mattingly to the front office thing.
I had heard that before, but that makes sense.
He has a senior advisor or as someone pointed out to me, this is kind of interesting. As someone pointed out to me, he's the offensive coordinator. You could still have him as your offensive coordinator and just take him off the coaching staff.
You could?
Yeah.
Well, you got to call up and ask it. Is he going to throw a fastball
No, but I mean, you could have, because organizations have pitching coordinators that aren't necessarily
even more reason for me to go out and get you experienced guys that hit in the middle of the order who you don't have to ask.
But I do think that and the other thing you do, if you elevate Mattingly to the front office, it does make it a little easier to clean clean the hitting coaches out.
I think
because it's hard.
That'll be the question. Will it happen? Like, it just seems like they're going to, ride or die with them, right? It's there. We are here until we ain't here no more.
I don't know about you.
That's all.
But
I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
I just say
sometimes change is not a bad thing.
I understand guys don't need the money, but I look at Victor Martinez and Edwin, and I'm going, there's nobody on that coaching staff when it comes to hitting that I think would relate more to these guys than those two. And I'm not just talking about the language thing. I'm not just talking about the fact they're both Latino. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Players know who Eddie is. Players know who Victor Martinez is.
Or they maybe come to the realization that, it's sort of like how you judge Pete Walker and John Snyder in 2024 because of the lack of talent that they had to go to in big-time moments when it mattered the most. Maybe that's what the front office is telling you. Maybe we're sticking with the coaches because it ain't the coach's fault. I don't know. I mean, it's like there's a bunch of ways you could go here and look at this. I just think, again, you bring in some dudes that's done it before, and predictability costs money. I mean, that's basically what this comes down to. The cleanup hitter, I've been telling you this for 3 years. Cleanup hitters matter. And I shouldn't have to tell him how to have an at-bat. He should know already.
All right, that's it for us. Barker's made his point. We'll be doing Blue Jays talk tonight following the game. We'll be back tomorrow from 4 to 6 Eastern right here on Sportsnet 590, the Fan of Sportsnet. Fan pre-games next. Have a great night.